Yes, I am online, and if you hear me, say something. I have the
Perfect. We hear you
screens
and
up.
we see your slide. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Perfect. Right. Thank you, Stefan. Stefan and I, we know each other from a very, very long time now. It's almost 30 years, and it's always exciting to be part of an OPC party or summit. Today, I'm talking about the hydrogen initiatives inside the OPC Foundation, which will start with the working group for electrolyzers. But before I dive into the working group, I want to give a little bit of context why we're actually doing that. So the initial thought about why hydrogen is to follow two megatrends that are currently happening in the world, right? That's what they are kind of global megatrends. One is to combat climate change. And sorry, Paul, but we need to stop burning fossil fuels. So down the road, my hope is that we get away from burning fossil fuels and go to cleaner energy, renewable energies. This will take a while. This will not happen overnight, but it will happen it started now, basically. And the second megatrend that we see is electrification. We're going away from being dependent on the fuels and trying to replace burning and fossil fuel-based systems with electric systems, and that's considered electrification. There's also a third trend, and that is kind of a little bit in opposite what Espen just said, where the energy system sizes are changing. This is a graphic from Bloomberg from actually 2 years ago, where they surveyed a lot of communities, towns, cities, and countries where they see the energy moving in the future. And there's a clear trend towards smaller systems, away from these larger monster plants, more towards microgrids and decentralized energy systems. And this is also a trend that we're seeing in the energy market, which also requires more agile and more fast developed systems, which again require faster data transfer and all the things that Espen did point out, right? Everything that is working for the big systems is also true for the smaller systems where we're heading to in the next couple of years. We're seeing by 2050, this is the prediction, we're much closer to the 10 megawatt size, and I would say this graphic has to be updated. We're going even further down to the megawatt size and below that in the communities and towns area of the future. This is a shift that requires a lot of changes to how we see energy and how we manage energy. We're producing energy more local. Most of you probably have a solar system on their roof. They have maybe some storage in the garage where they put the excess energy into batteries and then pull the battery, the energy from the battery in the night or when there's a power outage. This is basically already a microgrid, right? And if you think that further on, your intention with the solar system will be more and more to become independent of the major grid and have your own little mini microgrid, at home. Now, electrolyzers and hydrogen are a core part of that story. Batteries are great for short-term storage and a fine amount of storage that you want to keep. But if you want to store energy for longer or even trade energy, use energy for mobility, and bring a flask of hydrogen over to your neighbor because he is in need of it, that's much easier to be done with a hydrogen system than with a battery that you basically have fixed mount and cannot move that easily. Hydrogen has also other potentials in industry, like synthetic fuels for the steel industry. It can produce very high temperatures when it's burned. It can be used for industrial feedstock to create like fertilizers and anything you need in the agriculture. As I said, you can store the hydrogen over longer periods of times and also move hydrogen around much easier. You can use it as a backup for electricity, and it's very big coming in mobility, trains, buses, industrial trucks. These are all things that are starting to be powered by hydrogen. There's also initiative from Honda, Toyota, Hyundai and BMW to create hydrogen consumer cars. That has its challenge by itself, but it's also coming down the road when we come closer to 2030. And who knows what other new use cases are coming for this smallest molecule that we have, and it's the most abundant molecule in the universe. The only trouble with the hydrogen is it's always bound to something else. It's either in water, or it's in methane, or it's in some other component that we need to extract it. And that's where the electrolyzer comes into play. Before I go to the electrolyzers, there is a colorful array of hydrogen variations out on the market. And depending on what color you have, you get different subsidizations and grants, and you will be treated differently in the energy transition to renewable energies. You see on the top the 3 green kind of hydrogen technologies that are focusing on electricity, specifically the green hydrogen, and that's kind of the main focus of this speech today, because it will be created with wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, anything that is renewable. Nuclear is a special case. In Germany, not very popular, but in France and the US, very, very popular as a possibility for creating hydrogen through electrolysis. It's not considered green because there is also some residue at the end, as you know, and it's running under the purple and pink umbrella. And if you create electrolysis with power from the grid, where you do not know where the energy really comes from, that's considered yellow hydrogen. And everything below that line, blue, turquoise, gray, brown, and black, are basically traditional ways of creating hydrogen with fossil fuels, which are dominant at this point in time, but are in the way of being replaced by a more natural way of doing that. Blue is the only kind of segue between the traditional fossil fuels and the new electricity-based electrolysis. You can use natural gas reforming and capture the carbon that comes out of that reforming process in solid form, and then store it away. So you don't have really excess or methane or CO2 going into the air like what you do in the gasification with brown and black hydrogen. So it's kind of considered renewable hydrogen or good hydrogen, but everything below that is considered not great hydrogen, and will be basically not getting any subsidization from the US government or the European government. Speaking of subsidizations, hydrogen has become a huge focus point from the Inflation Reduction Act by the Biden administration. They announced last year there will be $9.5 billion made available for 7 hubs around the US that focus on the generation of hydrogen. You see those spots where the 7 hubs are. Each and every hub is focusing on a slightly different aspect. I'm up in the Pacific Northwest. Our hub is completely focused on green hydrogen, so renewable energy with hydro and solar. While, for example, the Midwest one is focusing more on nuclear generation. The main goal of this initiative is what I highlighted here in green, the 111 goal. $1 per 1 kilogram of clean hydrogen in 1 decade. That means by 2031, a kilogram of hydrogen should not cost more than $1. And this is very different from today. From today, if you buy a kilogram of hydrogen, it's around $30 a kilogram. And that makes a bus or a truck or even a car very, very expensive to refuel. A car has about 5 kilograms of hydrogen and a range of 400 miles. So you refill your gas tank for about $150, which no one in the US really will do. So we have to get the prices down below $3 where it becomes interesting, and $1 is really then beating everything else that's out in the market. I mentioned that electrolyzer is a big part of that. I'm representing Enapter today. Enapter is one of the electrolyzer companies in the world producing very small electrolyzers, from a single core system up to a multi-core system. And Enapter has adopted the AEM model of electrolysis, which is a mixture between the PEM and the alkaline version. Alkaline is using a very high concentrated version of an alkaline solution instead of water, which is not very environment friendly, but it's very, very efficient. So you can get a lot of hydrogen out of this solution in a reasonable amount of time and energy, but it's very environment and friendly. And PEMs are very fast in starting up and shutting down, and can be produced in very small sizes, but there are rare metals inside, like iridium and palladium, that have to be mined in China. And that is also very expensive to do. So the AM system is right in the middle and optimizes both sides, basically. Enapter has a management toolkit, and that brings us now to OPCUA. I had the pleasure of writing the OPC client and server for the electrolyzers of Enapter. And while I was doing that in the last 2 years, Enapter was saying, hey, why don't we start a standard for OPC for electrolyzers, and not just for electrolyzers, but all the other energy components that we need in a hydrogen system. A hydrogen system consists of many different devices, like storage, like compressors, dryers, the renewable energy part that needs to be joined in, and then, of course, at the very end, the fuel cell that then creates energy again from it. So while Enapter is embracing any protocol that's out there in the energy field, it has a very strong focus on OPC, and the electrolyzer from Enapter is the first one that actually has OPCUA integrated into it. This is a screenshot of a tree here in the Enapter system, where you can see all the data that is exposed in the electrolyzer. It uses, of course, the Enapter terms, but that is exactly one of the things that we hope will be unified in the working group, in the standard that I'm talking about in the next section. We have started the efforts in the OPC Foundation, so now I put my OPC hat on instead of my Enapter hat, and we're looking at standardizing and creating companion specs for different parts of the hydrogen ecosystem. We're starting with the electrolyzer group because that was getting the most interest and the most participation in the beginning. Also very strong interest by the VDMA to co-join this and co-host this initiative. And I'm proud to announce that we have our first initial kickoff meeting on July 2nd. So basically in 2 weeks, we're starting our very first meeting on the electrolyzer. On the right side, you see a schematic of all the different areas that are involved in a hydrogen system, like production, consumption, storage, and of course the IT side that wants to have a simplified view of all this with easy connectivity. And that easy connectivity is exactly what we want to achieve with this working group, that you can integrate all these different parts very easily together and build such a system in a very short period of time with a multitude of vendors involved. So you don't have to buy anything from just one vendor. There are other working groups that we are trying to form. This is in a very early stage, so nothing really to announce yet, but we have initially talked with a refueling dispenser working group. We have done some initial talks around fuel cells. All the blue spots that you see on the right side, we at some point in time will need a companion spec to build out this hydrogen system. The hydrogen group has a couple goals. The hydrogen electrolyzer working group has a certain set of goals that we put in our charter. The most important one is the first one. The integration in efforts of a hydrogen systems are quite complex, and we want to bring this complexity down. We also want to have a unified way of data and functions that the electrolyzer produce, that we can replace electrolyzers depending on which vendor you prefer to work with. Specifically, when it comes to larger ones, you also want to maybe combine multiple different vendors in one system, and then you don't want to have different models and different communication methods to talk to these. So we want to uniform this data exchange and the data models behind it. That's basically the big point I made in the middle. The modeling of the functionality and the information that an electrolyzer produces, we want to have modeled in a node set and exposed via OPCUA. This does not mean that the internals of an electrolyzer will be dictated by the is just the outer communication to the next level up. The next communication level up will have a unified view of the model. And that means is integration with distributed control system, process control system, and energy management systems, and any other third-party tool that wants to access the data. The focus is on operations optimization and maintenance, which is kind of the bulk of the costs when you operate such a system, and that's also where we put our focus for the working group. Another focus we have is to enable aggregation servers for legacy systems. If you have brownfield electrolyzers, they might have a CAN interface, or they have a even worse, an RS-485 interface, something without security and something without any protection. You want to shield that from your higher level systems and specifically the outside world. We're working with hydrogen, an explosive gas if it comes in contact with oxygen. So you want to make sure that nobody hacks this and tries to play a little Hindenburg thingy here. We have lots of members in the group. As I mentioned, it's a joint working group with the OPC Foundation and the VDMA. The VDMA has sent out an invite to all their members. OPC Foundation has sent out an invite to all members, and we got a lot of feedback from a lot of interesting companies, including Siemens and Phoenix and ThyssenKrupp, to get this started. So we're really excited for our first meeting to get everyone on a table. The meeting will be live in person on July 2nd at the VDMA in Frankfurt. If you are interested in joining this, please either let me know, or Alexander Almendinger knows about the details. Heiko Herden will give a presentation later. He can also be contacted, or of course Stefan, he can also connect us directly with your interest. And with that, I went through my slides very fast, so I hope that was great, and give it back to you, Stefan. Except there are any questions, I will stay online. If you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A section, and I can answer them there as well.